One man who is well known for his propensity to lose it on occasion is Dana White. Even if he's still the greatest at what he does, you'll have a difficult time getting out of trouble if you cross him. Here are 10 of Dana White's angstiest moments, listed in no particular sequence and without further ado. Number 10. Mario Yamasaki. While the UFC do try their best to set these fighters up fairly, sometimes it's very clear that we're looking at a mismatch. And in the case of Valentina Shevchenko's fight with Priscilla Cachoeira, that's exactly how it played out. Shevchenko well and truly destroyed Cachoeira in this fight, so much so that the referee, Mario Yamasaki, came under some major criticism for not stopping the fight sooner. In a rare statement, the veteran referee claimed that he wanted to give Priscilla a chance to be a warrior. And boy, that did not go down well with Dana White. Number 9. Cris Cyborg. Cris Cyborg and Dana White have had one terrible relationship over the years. Who can forget the time Dana White called her Vanderlei at a dress and heels? So, when she finally landed in the UFC, it was only natural to expect some more attention. And when Cyborg posted an edited video that misrepresented a conversation she had with Dana White backstage, Dana finally had the ammunition he needed to take the moral high ground. She was immediately given the boot from the UFC and hasn't returned since. Number 8. Jon Jones and Greg Jackson. You know that you've done something wrong when Dana White is calling it one of the worst moments in his time as UFC president. Back in 2012, UFC 151 fell into some real trouble due to an injury sustained by the headliner, Dan Henderson. All of a sudden, the 205-pound champion, Jon Jones, was left with a tough decision. Fight the replacement, Chael Sonnen, on 8 days' notice or pull out of the fight. In the end, he decided to do the latter, tanking the event in the process. In some ways, it's understandable, right? After all, Jon Jones is under no obligation to be underprepared for any title defense. But boy, when Dana White had his say, he did not hold back. He questioned the champion's fighting spirit, called his coach a sport killer, and named this moment as one of the lowest points in his entire time as UFC president. Number 7. Oscar De La Hoya. Sometimes it takes a long-lasting feud to really get the best one-liners out of Dana. And when it comes to his hatred of Oscar De La Hoya, White can always be relied upon to bring his A-game, whether he's taking shots at De La Hoya's drug use or bringing up his terrible promotional practices. Dana loves nothing more than losing his mind at the former world champion boxer. But when Oscar dragged Chuck Liddell out of retirement for an ill-fated return to MMA, that's when things became truly personal. Dana pulled no punches as he took aim at Oscar's character, accusing him of using Liddell with no concern for his well-being.
I heard last week the cokehead, Oscar De La Weirdo, is talking that I don't have any, place to tell guys when to retire. I don't tell friends when. First of all, it's called friendship, you cokehead. Chuck Liddell's almost 50 years old and has no business fighting anymore. Anybody who claims to be a friend of Chuck Liddell and was anywhere near this fight is full of They're not a friend of Chuck Liddell. I hope somebody talks De La Hoya into fighting again, and I hope he gets knocked out just like Chuck Liddell did in the first round. Cokehead nutball.
And to be honest, we kind of agree with him on that one. Number 6. Forrest Griffin. Forrest Griffin might be a fan favorite, but he also has a history of some strange and bizarre behavior that doesn't always go down so well. And after beating Tito Ortiz at UFC 148, he didn't even let the judges read their decision before leaving the octagon. When the announcement was made, he then returned and very bizarrely what should have been Tito's retirement speech by interviewing him, making for one very awkward moment. And yeah, Dana was not pleased, not one bit. Post-fighting, he took shots at Griffin for his professionalism in what should have been Ortiz's big moment. You leave the octagon before the decision is called in the fight that you want. Are you out of your mind? And then he grabs the mic and starts interviewing. I'm not done talking to Forrest yet. I met him out back in the hall. I said, "What are you doing? What's wrong with you? Are you mental? Get your hand raised or Tito's hand raised. Do your interview and go. If you're bummed out, do it in the back. And if you're bucking for Joe Rogan's G job, it isn't going to happen. That's Joe's job. Leave the microphone alone until Joe comes over and talks to you." Sadly, neither Tito Ortiz nor Forrest Griffin would ever fight in the UFC again. Number 5. The media. You know how promoters are supposed to, promote fights. Well, it seemed kind of odd just how aggressively Dana White tried to shut down any questions about an incident involving Georgie Masvidal and Kevin Holland at a UFC 287. Wouldn't it make perfect sense to sow the seeds for a future meeting between these two? I mean, obviously, Georgie was soon to retire, but Dana appeared to have absolutely no time for something that would have definitely generated some decent traffic in the news circuit. But there's nothing the UFC president loves more than shutting down the media, though. So maybe he was just in a bad mood on this one. Number 4. Ariel Helwani. As much as Dana loves making enemies with the media, he has a special level of disdain for the veteran reporter Ariel Helwani. These two have butted heads on countless occasions over the years. Generally, Ariel is trying to ask tough questions that Dana simply has no interest in answering. But when the UFC moved an entire event, UFC 232, on extremely short notice from Vegas to California just so John Jones could fight after failing a drug test, naturally, Ariel had more than a few questions beyond the safe, surface-level stuff that most media members would ask. So, what did Dana do? Well, he did what he does best, firing back aggressively in an attempt to get Helwani to stop talking. Number 3. Elite XC. This one is an oldie, but it is certainly just as memorable. After the up-and-coming promotion, Elite XC lost their shining superstar Kimbo Slice due to a rapid-fire first-round KO from Seth Petrozelli. Petrozelli made some comments to the media that suggested that he had been offered extra money to not shoot for a takedown on the promotion's superstar. Sure, he tried to backtrack and say that his comments were taken out of context, but the damage was already done. And as soon as Dana White heard this, he put out a statement that saw him have a total field day at Elite XC's expense. Over the years, most other organizations who challenged the UFC have either gone bust or been swallowed up through being bought out. Unsurprisingly, after this messy scandal involving their own major crossover superstar, Elite XC caved, and shortly after, never to be heard from again. Number 2. Anderson Silva. Sometimes, the lines between MMA as a sport and MMA as an entertainment vehicle get blurred. And usually the biggest reason for this happening is when Dana and the fans flip out at a fighter who puts on a boring showcase. And in this case, Anderson Silva's title defense against Demi and Maia well and truly made the middleweight champion public enemy number 1. The UFC had a lot riding on this card. It was their Abu Dhabi debut, and in order to really knock this one out of the park, they'd opted to bring out the big guns. One of the big guns in question was Anderson Silva, a guy who could always be relied upon to at least try to get a huge finish. What we got in the end was 5 bizarre rounds of very tentative work from both men. And once the dust had settled, Dana White well and truly lost it, criticizing Anderson Silva without any care about holding back. Number 1. Frank Shamrock. You would be forgiven for assuming that the first ever UFC middleweight champion would have a place in the modern-day history books. But despite being a longtime king over that division before it was renamed the light heavyweight division, all signs of Frank Shamrock have been scrubbed clean these days. Because let's face it, if you make an enemy of Dana White, he will do everything in his power to try and ruin your name. And in one memorable rant that came after Shamrock made comments about White being a reason for MMA's slow acceptance in New York, Dana didn't hold back one bit, calling Frank a number of names while claiming that he is also incredibly dishonest. This is a relationship that will probably never be patched up. And in truth, it's a bit disappointing because Shamrock deserves to be held in very high esteem. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel.